Good day, everybody. My name's Stephen Redman. Welcome to Pastor's Library. This is the channel where we discuss everything to do with theology books. We talk about books that might be on a reading list for a seminary course, for a bachelor's or master's degree in biblical studies or in theology, or simply just books that you might have seen advertised or that piqued your interest in your own pastor's study. Whatever it is, we want to give you a bit of information that we hope will help you. My perspectives, which are mine, I want to share with you. And if anything I have to say today remotely helps you, please leave us a thumbs up on YouTube. Please also remember to subscribe and click on the bell if you haven't done, because that does help the algorithm. And without wanting to outlandishly praise the algorithm, let's recognise that it's a thing. So, I want to talk today about a totally new range of commentaries. They're called the Hodder Bible Commentary. This one is the Ecclesiastes. At the moment, it's the only Old Testament one I've got. I've ordered Genesis, which is allegedly out, but it hasn't appeared yet. So when I get hold of Genesis and maybe another one, we'll have a talk about the Old Testament. But right now, I want to talk about the New Testament in the Hodder Bible Commentary. The Old Testament are a grey cloth-bound hardback in a slipcover, whereas these New Testament ones are more beige, and the same is true with the slipcover. The artwork on the slipcovers is all unique. So Mark has got something about harvest, and I actually find these very easy on the eye. I think they're quite nice to look at. So these are hardbound. I haven't paid £20 for one of these, which is quite remarkable. This one's 303 pages. A hardbound book, 303 pages, specialist book like this, you would sort of expect it to come in a bit higher. I am really pleased to say these are an affordable series. I want to get out of the way my one criticism, which is there's no bibliography. There are some footnotes, and there are footnotes quoting particular books that the author has read or consulted, but there is no wide bibliography where you can consult it for ideas for your study. And really, I think that this is the wonder of a good bibliography, is it shows you where to read next. So that aside, bearing in mind these have got good binding and they're very affordable, there are some very good things to say about this book. So it's got a single 2-page appendix, and that the subject of that appendix is the longer ending of Mark. 2 pages out of 303 is probably not much, but it still deals with it. To get on to the really strong elements of this commentary, and believe me, there are some strong elements. Pages 55 and 56, it's talking about Jesus driving out demons, and he raises the issue of mental illness. Now, mental illness is something which I hear a lot more of today than I did when I was starting out as a pastor. But I can tell you this, that the author wants to say to you, Jesus is not confusing mental illness with demonized people. Neither should we reckon that demonized people don't exist, that it's all mental illness. And what he's saying is the spiritual is a very real realm, and we need to recognize that, and demonized people need dealing with according to the fact that they've got demons. And I think that idea might challenge a few people, but what he's saying is Jesus is not writing because he was a bit short-minded himself, didn't understand that there was such a thing as mental illness. This is being written about Jesus because there were people there who were demonized, who had spiritual influences in their lives that needed dealing with, and Jesus dealt with them with a word. And I think that's a very helpful position. Page 179, he raises a quote from Edward Young. Now, Edward Young wrote a 3-volume commentary for the New International Commentary on the Old Testament that I got on Isaiah. Now, this was the first ever commentary I had on Isaiah, and I've got to be honest with you, I still love it. Young is so easy to engage with, but he was a real academic of his day. He had a lot to offer, and those 3 volumes, I know that they have been reprinted as a standalone commentary, so look for it if it's out there for you. I know I'm the one who's always saying it's over 30 years old, don't quote for it. I'm talking about when you are writing essays, don't quote unnecessarily from items that are over 30 years old, because that's what the academic world wants from us. But as a pastor, as a church leader, as someone who's preaching or leading a group, there's nothing wrong with reading something that's a bit older. And I have to say, you would always get something from Young. So bear that in mind. So you see, it had activated my nostalgia switch. When it gets to the section on the Transfiguration, he has this to say. He says, just like Jesus had intended to pass by his disciples when walking on the water, Jesus, at his Transfiguration, passed by Moses and Elijah. I stopped there to think, because that idea had never gone through my head before, and I wanted to engage with it for a few moments, and I found that a helpful idea. I'm not sure that I finished going through that, but I do say that this man has something to offer. So what am I saying about Christopher K.W. Moore and Mark's commentary on the Hodder Bible Commentary series? I'm saying is this author clearly has some welcome insights, and the book is a low cost and a good quality binding. It has no accessible bibliography, but it is much more pitched at the introductory level. This is just something that's a bit above N.T. Wright's Mark for Everyone. And this will never compete with a New International Commentary on the New Testament or something like that. But this has a place. And one thing that we should encourage people is to read. And we don't want to give the New International Commentary on the New Testament as the first book to read to a new Christian on Mark's Gospel. But this might be more achievable. And what we need to do is read and keep reading, and this might be a way in for a lot of people. You might need to come in with N.T. Wright's, Tom Wright's Mark for Everyone to start with, but this would be the next thing. And what I would say is it's good, it has plenty of ideas, and I really felt that I got something out of this book. So that's Mark's Gospel. The next one I got my hands on was Luke, and to the best of my knowledge at the time of filming, there are 3 volumes out in the New Testament, and this is the second one. So this came out in 2024. This is 447 pages, and I feel that this is like Moore in that it has a lot to offer. David G. Peterson is the author. I have engaged with Peterson's pillar commentary on the Acts of the Apostles before, and I think that this is a superb entry level or sub-intermediary level. Now, this man also activated my nostalgia circuit in that he quotes fairly quickly Robert Tanhill, and now Robert Tanhill was required reading when I was at Bible college, and he also quotes Joel Green, who is without question the leading Lucan scholar of our age, and I thought that both of those showed that he was saying to me, "Come, Stephen, I read as you read." There you go. Here's a couple of snippets from him which I felt helpful. He says in the section talking about Mary being betrothed to Joseph, he says she would have been betrothed between her 12th birthday and 12 years and a half, which is very detailed, very specific, and very interesting. I've read people say that she might have been 12, 13, 14, 15, but here is very specific between 12 and 12 and a half. on page 123, he goes into the title Son of Man and its meaning in Mark, and I engaged with that. I found that very helpful too. He actually quotes also from John Noland, the guy who wrote the 3-volume Word Biblical Commentary on Luke's Gospel, and I think he's an overlooked guy sometimes. I've done a video on him in the past, somewhere in the list if you want to look for it. Looking at the issue of the widow of Nain, here there is something that I found really excellent. He says the relational significance of this is stressed in that Jesus gives him back to his mother. And I thought how lovely that he's seeing the relational significance there. And then he goes straight on to talk about Jesus' relationship with his Father. And I found that an interesting segue. So again, this commentary is like the Mark 1 in that it's a little bit above introductory. It's sort of just above Luke for Everyone by N.T. Wright, but it has a little bit more detail, but it's pitched probably at the non-academic level, maybe at someone who's done A-level or similar international baccalaureate type level rather than university level. But I do think it is a worthwhile investment. Again, like the other one, I paid less than £20 for this, and I think that that's a very nice pitch to go for. And I really felt that Peterson was sat in the rocking chair, rocking backwards and forwards, giving me a fireside chat from my granddad. And I felt that was entirely accessible. I felt I could turn to Peterson and ask him questions on the page, and I felt that he was responsive. I'm just saying I felt that Peterson has handled this task very well indeed. So that's Mark, that's Luke. There is one other New Testament one I've got, which is Acts. This is by a guy called Martin C. Salter, and again, it came out in 2024, and it's 396 pages. This is a good size introductory, maybe coming up to intermediate level commentary. Really strong point here. It talks about Acts chapter 2 as being a new Sinai experience. Now, this is something that I've read in a number of places, and I really like this idea. He talks about the fire of God is no longer in the distance, scaring people away. The fire of God is now hovering over the disciples. And I thought that was a great avenue of thought. Really is excellent. Now, I am from a Pentecostal charismatic background. I lead a charismatic church. And we know that the Pentecostal charismatics are leading the way worldwide in church growth, and we thank God for that. But like everyone else, I'm grateful for all the plethora of Christians out there. And I'm also pleased to interact with many of them and be grateful for them face to face. I meet with a group of Christians every week, leaders of churches, leaders of ministries, all from a wide range of backgrounds. And it gives me great joy just to see their faces, let alone to pray together for our city. And I think it's important that we engage with people of different traditions to us. I also think it's important in a commentary that it's good when the writer can share viewpoints without necessarily bashing you over the head with them. And I sort of slightly disappointed also in chapter 2 that he hits the cessationist baton, and he talks about Acts chapter 2 as an unrepeatable event. And I thought, oh, golly, that feels a bit spiky, a bit prickly. And there are a couple of other times in this commentary that he says things that are a little bit like this. Now, I read commentaries from people of different backgrounds to myself, And whereas I would describe myself as a free will theist, I read ones by Calvinists. And I think that the art of a good commentary is to be able to describe what's going on in the scriptures from different points of view, and to you might promote one point of view, but you can see other sides. And I just feel I was a little bit disappointed that this guy couldn't quite see other sides. But he then goes on to deal with some other issues very sensitively, and I felt very engaged with his talking about Christians facing persecution. And I have to say that was excellently handled. So personally, I'm probably not going to dip into this much in the future because I just don't like its bias. But he has got a number of things to say which are worthwhile. And all I would say to you is this is a book that is not to be trashed. I'm not going to throw it in the bin, and I don't see why anyone else should. All I'm saying to you is it has got a bit of bias which you might read through and you might pick that up. And if it offends you, well, it offends you. Okay, so that's 3 books from this new Hodder Bible commentary, Mark, Luke and Acts. These are all pitched at sort of sub-intermediary level. These are sort of a bit higher up than Tom Wright's For Everyone series, but these do have something to say. And I've given you details on 3 there, 2 of which I actually really liked, and 1 which just slightly left a bad taste in my mouth. But, you know, it's not enough to fall out with a man about. So let me just encourage you to read. For me, it's coming up on the summer holidays. I hope that whatever time of year it is for you, that you are also taking the opportunity to read a little bit. Keep engaging with the scriptures daily, but also read a little bit, because there's a lot of good theology out there which will help you, and others that will challenge you. And a bit of challenge didn't really hurt anybody. If you've liked what I've had to say today, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Remember to subscribe and click on the bell. And until next time, all I've got to say to you is bye!